Hello, my name is Ingo Schubert. I'm the Global Cloud Identity Architect at RSA Security. And today I'd like to talk to you about Zero Trust and how it relates to some of the philosophy of the 18th century, and of course, how it relates to authentication today. Now, Zero Trust, and you probably heard about Zero Trust if you haven't been living under a rock the last couple of years. Zero Trust is really an excellent opportunity to think fresh around how you approach IT security and how you implement it, how you architect solutions. However, it's also a good opportunity to actually shoot yourself in the foot, depending on how you approach Zero Trust in general. Now, when I looked into Zero Trust first time a couple of years back, and then more and more the last couple of months, you see a couple of those presentations of vendors, of architects, which have a really, really rigid approach to Zero Trust. Yeah? For them, and you see some of the presentation titles I've have here on my slide. It's a really rigid approach, like trust no one, a world of no trust, which, I get their point. They want that everybody uses Zero Trust approaches. And in many cases, they are right that Zero Trust is a good approach, but doing everything based on Zero Trust might not be appropriate. And I get to why that is. So one thing that I think some are missing is that Zero Trust isn't the goal. You don't do something to get to Zero Trust. Zero Trust is not even the beginning. It's a possible beginning. It's one possible approach how you do IT security in general. The goal is then what? If Zero Trust is a possible beginning, what should be the goal of that? And let's now take a step back and start with philosophy. One of the things that popped into my mind when listening to some people out there talking about Zero Trust is how, as I said, how rigid, how absolute they view Zero Trust. And that reminded me of Kant's categorical imperative. Now, if you don't know, Immanuel Kant is a German philosopher of the 18th century. And so he was, and this is really shortened up, by the way. So his thing was that you should do good things because of good reasons. So very, condenses what you do not wish done to yourself, do not do to others. And also, if you do something good, it's only really good if the motives behind that are good. So if you do something good because you get money, that doesn't count. Now, that is what this total approach. You always have to do the right thing. And not only the right thing, it has to be good in every possible sense. This rigid approach, that is what reminded me a bit when I heard some of the Zero Trust presentations. And it does make sense in many cases. Of course, like in Kant's case, everybody wants to be good, or most of us, I guess. And of course, Zero Trust seems to be appealing. It's like, all right, I start from zero. That makes sense. However, that's not the only way how to approach things. In some cases, it might actually be not really that good if you only take that approach. Let me, introduce you to a problem, philosophical problem. And this is like, a theoretical construct here. It's not a real thing. It's the trolley problem, which is often, one of the examples when you talk about different approaches in philosophy. So the trolley problem is like this. So this trolley on the left, is out of control. You cannot be stopped. And if it continues on a path, straight to the right here, it will actually kill 5 people. If it would be diverted to the other track, only 1 person will die. Now you are the person here at the switch. You have the control if the trolley should go straight or should take the other route. What should you do if you follow Kant's categorical imperative? Well, Kant is pretty clear. You shouldn't do anything. the switch must not be changed, because in that case, you actually do an action which results in something bad, somebody getting hurt, or in this case, somebody getting killed. Now, you're in action. That's just the way it is. You don't have any active say in this. Yes, 5 people get killed, but you don't have any active part of that. So Kant says that's all good, because you didn't actively cause harm. Now, many of you would have a problem with that, and you're not alone. It just doesn't feel right in this case. It really feels like you should pull that switch and divert the trolley. Now, you're not alone, because maybe somebody that's close to you knows a bit about another approach in philosophy, which is called utilitarianism. And Jeremy Bentham, another philosopher, and John Stuart Mill, which some of you may know as well, they came up with this, which is pretty much the opposite of Kant in some respects. And their thing was that the goal should be to increase the overall benefit. If your action results in a higher benefit to you or to a group, then this approach should be taken. And important is, even if some of a group or some third party has some disadvantage, as long as the overall benefit is deemed higher. Now, if we look at the trolley problem again and look at it from the Bentham point of view, utilitarianism, then the choice is clear. You should absolutely pull the switch, pull the lever, and the trolley will be diverted, and only one person will be killed. Now that seems like a clear decision, because 5 persons will be saved and only one will die. That is the opposite of what you would do if you would follow Kant's categorical imperative. If 5 persons get killed and one will live. However, you have a problem here. You do not know the complete context. Those 5 could be murderers, and this one person that with your action now will die is just close to invent a cure for cancer. And then suddenly that equation looks a lot different. And that's the problem with utilitarianism. You don't know the benefit or the results of every action to its full extent. So what does that have to do with zero trust? Now, I mentioned in the beginning that this rigid approach implement zero trust everywhere because it's the right thing to do. It seems like that's the knee-jerk reaction almost, because it seems to be so attractive. But Kant says, that's the thing to do, because that's the right thing to do. You should do that. But Bentham would say, nah, not really. Not if it doesn't provide enough benefit. So you do have to think about, does it really make sense in every use case? But where should you then use your trust? Now, Bentham would say, where the benefit is the highest. So you actually have to think about, what is the benefit if I do something based on a zero trust approach? And if you do it, then do it right. So this is the Kant's categorical imperative. If you do it, then do it right. You do it because of the right reasons. Your motives need to be pure. Now, what does that mean? So in zero trust, you still have to think about your risk, for example, and then compare that to the cost that it actually provides. So zero trust has some benefit, and it counters some risk. You have to be aware of all that. But where should you aim for? So zero trust, as I said, is a beginning, a possible beginning. That's fine. That's good. So it's a perfect starting point. But where you need to be, you need to figure that one out. That's the target trust. Because only when you have a target trust, do you know where do you need to go and what the effort will be. So zero trust is an excellent opportunity to think about risk and trust in general. So when you basically say, I want to do some zero trust, I like to approach a certain problem I have with a zero trust architecture, then you have to think about the risks that are associated with users, with applications, and so on. You have to think about the target trust that compensate this risk or those risks. And only if you do that, you can match and find out if zero trust is the right approach for that one, or if the effort that you have to put into is too high and basically not worth the effort. In the area of identity access management, if you think about it, risk, you have to think about what individual users, the roles, the groups, the applications, the data, what risks are they exposed to? This could then be looked at from a point of entitlements. Yeah, so what entitlements, yeah, what access rights do those users, roles, and groups actually have? Yeah, so because the more entitlements you have, the more sensitive entitlements, the higher risk you have or that group has. And authentication is one of the techniques, one of the technical controls where you can compensate this risk. So think about this. Authentication is an important part of zero trust. Why? Because it helps in the creation and management of trust anchors. The trust anchors are then the one where you can basically latch onto and provide them as your beacon. Yeah? You actually hold on to that, and then you can do things securely. So what do we mean by a trust anchor? Now, like a real anchor, a trust anchor, first of all, is a real anchor is useless if it doesn't reach the seabed. Yeah, it's clear. Yeah, if it doesn't have anything to latch onto, it's useless. An authenticator. Now, if you think about strong authentication, and you have an authenticator, and it could be anything, could be a hardware authenticator, hardware token, could be a mobile phone, could be something else. It doesn't really matter all that much. But that thing will be useless if it isn't registered appropriately. So you need to register it in a way that it actually makes it into a trust anchor. Otherwise, it's just a thing that spits out an OTP or that has a cryptographic key. It's pretty much useless because it doesn't really do its thing that it's supposed to do. It's creating that trust anchor. And you have to think about how you do that, because different user types have different ways how they can register. Maybe you can build on top of an existing authentication mechanisms. Maybe you can use an additional context the user is in when you register that authenticator. Yeah. So basically, you have to create this trust that you can later then use. The more effort you put into that in the beginning, the more benefit you can get out of it later. Yeah. So the target should always be to create an appropriate level of trust. That doesn't mean everybody does the same thing, because not everybody is exposed to the same risk. Yeah? And some people will be worth much more. They have a higher risk, so you have to put more effort to enroll those authenticators securely. Others, they're probably more on the convenient side. Yeah, you don't have to put as much effort in because they're not exposed to as much risk. So always aim to not have too little trust and not too much. Yeah, too little, obviously, because it doesn't compensate risk enough. Not too much because you're putting too much effort in it. In other words, it costs you too much to do that. Yeah, so you shouldn't do that either, because then you're basically wasting money and effort. Keep also in mind that every anchor is useful. Like a real anchor here, yeah, depending on which type of seafloor you have, one will be completely useless. And it's the same with authenticators. Yeah? If they cannot be used by the users, they will be useless. So use the right authenticator for the right job. Some people might not have smartphones. So if you just provide smartphone-based authentication, useless to them. Yeah. Some cannot, for example, take their smartphones with them. Call center agents, for example, often cannot use smartphones. Yeah. Maybe you have users which are really super high risk and they need a dedicated security device like a hardware token. Yeah. So always have a choice of authenticators. Some might be more convenient, other might be more secure. The point is you have to choose the right tool for the right job. So how does Secure ID and Zero Trust fit together? RSA Secure ID fits excellently into Zero Trust environments because it provides a large choice of authenticators. Very convenient, high secure, pick the right one for the right job. It has a really flexible and secure registration. Yeah? There are many ways how you can actually create those trust anchors, how you enroll users and their authenticators. Yeah? Always in the back of your mind, keep that depending on the risk the user is exposed to, you can use different kinds of enrollment. Some might be more flexible, more convenient, others are more rigid and more secure. But again, right tool for the right job. High risk users, you need to put more effort in them, for example. User-friendly authentication, another thing that is really important. If whatever you do, if it's not convenient, people will avoid using it, or you will create friction in one way or the other. And that might be just, creating a lot of help desk calls. If your authentication solution is not up to the task to provide a user-friendly environment, and you do not want, of course, a lot of help desk calls. Also, don't forget, whatever you do with authentication, it needs to integrate into all of your infrastructure components, be they cloud-based infrastructure or on-premise infrastructure, which some of you might have for the foreseeable future. So you should have one system that covers all of that. Because in the end, it's all about the users, all about the data, and they use applications everywhere, and the data is everywhere. So why should you secure this data and those users in different ways, depending on where they are, which kind of applications they use? But keep in mind, just buying a bunch of products with zero trust in their title doesn't really help. You need to do it for the right reasons. Do zero trust right. So this is where Immanuel Kant comes back in. If you do zero trust, do it for the right reasons. As a holistic approach that has a fixed starting point, zero trust, and you need to define a target. You need to think about risk and how to compensate them. And then you apply this principle where it gives you the most benefit. And then you will have a successful zero trust project. And with that, I thank you, and I hope you found this presentation useful.